unless anybody can hook up the video. And but you got the address, what the university can do if they decide to. The university can get 10 users. They put it in the library, and more than 10 people can use it because it means 10 at any one time. You're not going to have more than 10 people use it at one time.
So it's not open for individuals?
Yeah, no, an individual can do it. If an individual comes in, it's $99 a year. Universities get it for 400. Doesn't they can got a lot more than one can use it.
And so do you want to expand that to include like as many possible individuals, or is that insufficient?
I run what's called the Millennium Project. There's 50 nodes around the world and do a lot of different things. This is one of the serious major things we're doing, but it's just one of them. We also do the State of the Future Index, we do the methodologies, we do specific studies. We just came out with an encyclopedic dictionary of futures terms. So we're not as focused on it as I'd like to be. Yes, I would like it to grow, and I would like it to grow beyond my control. Yeah. Not that I'm in complete control right now anyway. But yeah. And I would have no problems if Apple or Google comes in and creates a better one. You know, they got big systems. They're big systems. I don't think I want to surpass that. Although, but quite clearly, some people have said, well, I've got Google and I've got Wikipedia. What do I need collective intelligence for? It's because they don't pull it together. They're brilliant. I mean, they're, when I walked into Apple, not Apple, but
Wikipedia pulls together.
They're fabulous. Yeah, but it's not coherence. It pulls it together on a thing.
Yeah.
But it's not an interactive thing. It's not, it's not interlinked.
No, it's not policy driven.
Yeah, it's a different thing. I mean, it's fabulous. I think it's one of the greatest.
Not change driven.
I remember when I started, all these people said, "Oh, it's going to be a mess." Not so bad. Not so bad. I mean, information warfare is fought through there sometimes, by the way. You do a Google search on me, and you'll see I was wiped out.
Yeah, that's so bad.
Yeah, you do a Google search on the Millennium Project, you'll see us wiped out. But you go through other people's stuff, you'll find this reference all over the place that we don't exist.
I am?
And you got to pick your battles. I don't give a damn.
His Wikipedia page was deleted.
Wiped out, yeah. And the reasons were sent to me were a screen. Rand Corporation recommended you. Yeah, so that's not my fault. And the web link isn't working. Yeah, that's not my fault. Well, he's only had about, several hundred references, but that wasn't good enough in the top journals. Not my fault. I mean, it was a silly sort of stuff.
No, but that's the same issue why I'm asking you who are the editors and who are the ones that are actually vetting. It's the same issue. I believe that in collective intelligence.
Yes, but in our system, you don't get deleted. The counter to yours gets next to it. So if someone deleted me, you say, here's my stuff, and here's why he should be deleted. If it was our stuff, you'd have it right next to it.
Okay.
You're not deleted.
But how do you come then at the branch to those 15?
That's another story.
That's how do you harvest it?
Okay. One of the principal reasons we have 50 nodes, I should explain what a node is. Oh, good. You talked about networks. That's phase 2. I'll give you phase 5. Conventional hierarchy, step 1.
I have to leave now.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
very interesting.
Step 1, hierarchy. Information goes up to that, right? Network cuts across hierarchies, right?
Yeah.
Right? That changes the direction of the information flow. All right, now, but they're like-minded people. Or they're not a network. They're a network of cybernetics, or it's a network of furniture. All right? Now, so that's step number 2. Step number 3 is to intersect networks into a node. That makes it richer. So, like, for example, a network in our system might be government-oriented people. They want to do something future, whatever. Business, universities, NGOs, UN systems, international systems. So that when we throw a question out to a node, they then draw on a richer cross-section of people And they know, like in Tehran, we have a node in Tehran. I'm not going to know who knows the most about water in Tehran. But the Tehran node does, and that can call a person up and, say, Mohammed, will you answer this questionnaire? So we got the 15 global challenges based upon, the first question was what's going on that's going to become a big deal in 25 years that people either don't know or have misunderstood. We collected about 180 or 190 what we call developments, because we don't want to get in an argument between trend and event, because we're working a lot of different languages, so we've got to have dumb, simple words. So we collected all that sort of stuff and then said, okay, what makes it go out good, what makes it bad? A whole bunch of repeating these questionnaires and then a series of interviews. And we ended up with 15 global challenges and a whole bunch of information behind them. We have a planning committee who then said, you looked like a bunch of engineers, you looked at the problems, you didn't look at the opportunities enough. So we said, okay. So we said the same question, what's a big deal, it's going to become a big deal, positive for humanity, to see if it's misunderstood or not. We collected all that, put that together, so that became 15 opportunities in an annual report. We do an annual State of the Future report. In the third year, we put them together, and then our node in Finland says, stop. We're using your framework to evaluate our country. If you keep changing what those 15 are, or 10, or whatever you pick, we're not going to get any longitudinal stuff here. So we kept it the same up until last year. We put education in. We put two decision-making ones together and put education in. Now, how did that come about? It came about through a series of questionnaires and interviews and feedback systems until patterns emerged. That's the best way to put it. But then we changed with an overwhelming response on some of the stuff from time to time.
But we are you and a bunch of people.
Well, 50 nodes and a staff, and so far 4,500 people participated in it. It's the largest systematic review of what's important on the planet that's ever been done. Full stop. Not perfect, but no one's come close to it. It's more democratic, cross-disciplinary, cross-cultural that's ever been done. Not a close second.
Also, I did say it's also, like I think you emphasized, it's also good because it's not just like GDP, it's not just measuring economic.
That's the State of the Future Index, that's different.
Yeah.
Right, the way the State of the Future Index is another thing we do. So we took the 15 challenges and we said, okay, what would you measure? This goes back to the situation chart. What would you measure to show progress or regress on this? So then we collected 119 different indicators, of which we could only use 19 because the data wasn't worth a damn. I mean, someone says, all right, you're going to make yourself happy. Okay, fine. What's it going to measure? So then we did some more work later. Now we're up to about 30 variables that have been vetted through a similar process. And they'll grow and change. But there, GDP is only one of the 30 variables, that's right. And we have to watch that we don't double count, because if you say organized crime is a percent of GDP, then you're counting GDP twice. You can't do that. So it's an imperfect measure, but it's certainly better than GDP by itself, and it's way beyond the Human Development Index. And then we do a sensitivity analysis. You take the 15, you hold each one, and then take one, improve it. So then we do this for a couple of countries. Anyways, that's step 3, is nodes. Step 4 is you connect up nodes into what I call fields of play. So that's step 4. Examples of that is we did a couple years ago. Most of Latin America was having 200-year anniversaries. Slightly different in different countries, but more or less. So the nodes in Latin America self-organized what's important about what scenario should be done, what variables, how that sort of, what sort of research, and they put it together. And nobody was completely in charge, by the way. It was more like an opera, interactive sort of a thing. So that was produced by what I call a field of play. No one was completely in charge. Then that's step number 5, is you then hook up fields of play. And that's what I think I'm doing now. We've got Reaver, which is Latin American node. We've got the European Foresight, which no one just established a little while ago, the European nodes, and the European Foresight College, the combination put together. So now I sort of hook these things together. Now, it's pretty clear that the Harvard Business School of Management is going to go, wait a minute, go back to step 2. So that's why when I said it's way beyond, not way beyond, but it's not just networks. But think of nodes, because networks is, a lot of people talk about network theory, but node doesn't get the same attention. And then field of play hasn't been written up yet. I think we're done. Yeah?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I look forward to your chart with the trade in the middle of it.
I'll send it.
Okay.
Maybe one last question.
Sure.
Are you optimistic?
You know, never trust a futurist on that. And I'll tell you why. In my judgment, a futurist is not a science, although European futurists will call themselves scientific. The irony is they look at us and say we're the most scientific think tank, which we're not. To me, I accept science about control of a variable and experiment. I mean, narrow-minded definition. But I think it's more like a craft, where you're applying knowledge, a skill, like medicine. Like medicine is not a science. It draws on science, but it's not a science. And so I think we're more that way. So just like a doctor, if you're complaining, I can't get better, I'm going to tell you how you're going to make it. Right? Take this medicine. If, on the other hand, you're overconfident, I'm going to scare you so you realize you can die in 5 years if you don't do this. Right? So now, which is the true statement? It's situational. So if I'm talking in Europe, I'm more optimistic. Because Europeans, as a generalization, tend to be more pessimistic than Americans. Europeans look at the Americans and say, you guys are too crazy, too optimistic. So the Americans, I'm scaring them to death. So it depends on where I am, whether I'm optimistic or pessimistic. Yeah? And now, but to answer
you are alone in your room?
You say in the State of the Future, and you said in your interview on Singularity Weblog that you have this line about optimism and pessimism now.
Oh yeah.
Where people, well, you say it, you know, but
Well, I don't know. There was something like, I don't even remember. It was something to the effect, we need, it was something like idealism untested by pessimism is worthless. Dangerous, worthless, whatever. But pessimism is poison to the imagination. Now, I said it differently this time. I always say it to I can't say the same thing twice. It's boring. Anyway, but the idea, and so what I'm looking for is hard-nosed idealists. People who are not afraid to consider that an individual in 20 years acting alone can make and deploy a biological agent with a 15-year incubation period around the world, and when people start dying everywhere and civilization's gone, they'll never be able to trace it. That's a serious problem. Right? So we're not afraid to look at that. But we're also idealistic to think that, yeah, well, maybe we can do something about that ahead of time and prevent it. Because if not, we're toast, and it won't be artificial intelligence alone.
For me, the biggest societal issue is this thing that employment is changing, and that's the major challenge. Huh? Well, how many people are able to follow?
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
Ford factory jobs?
Yeah, no, it's a
we
big
still
deal. I mean,
have?
that's one of the things I was dealing with the commission on
It's
Monday.
actually a very old problem. I mean, end of the 19th century, there was a nice pamphlet written, The Right to Laziness, and there was also the idea, if there's no more work, we should be lazy, but that introduces some kind of a basic income for which there is money enough. So,
But
how you're going to organize it, that's another matter.
Well, one of the things that
Not being
I've
employed
challenged
is
Kevin
not
on is to do a step sequence. Or like,
That's-
imagine a cash flow projection. You know, because you've got different, I mean, Congo is in a different financial situation than the European Union on benefits. The demographics is different, you know. So it's not like one size will fit all. But nevertheless, it would be interesting to do some sort of a scenario and with a cash flow, almost like a straight business cash flow. How do those monies go from where to over what period of time and where? Because I'm convinced that until that is done, these ideas will not hold. The policymaker says, look, we're already broke in the European Union, you're going to ask me to pay more?
And for me, the thing is, if you look at these ideas, we're looking at income, as though a human being, the only thing is money
Correct.
that he needs.
Correct.
And job, self-fulfillment,
No, that's
growing
why he
society.
said you need a different source of income and you need another way of keeping people busy.
You need the Roman Empire, right? We're gonna have
No,
games
no,
and
no,
games
no,
and
no,
games
no,
and
it's not-
stuff
it's not
FIFA
games.
every year or whatever.
I think one of the best things to come out of the Web 2.0 is that lots of people have discovered that they can do all kind of
Right.
creative,
Absolutely.
collaborative work on the internet and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't need
Yeah.
any particular infrastructure.
Yeah, we should
to
argue
use.
with you, I
Yeah,
agree,
that's
I think we
That's probably the hope, huh?
now, I argue with the
How
economists in these
agree.
meetings to say, look, you've looked at employment as that which makes the civilization work. Well, if you only need 30% of that, the other 70% are worthless? No. And we're not just economic animals, are we? We're more than economic animals. Okay, so if the leisurely priestly caste of Egypt invented philosophy, what could 8 billion humans, because you guys still are working in conventional code building, 8 billion humans, 2050, augmented geniuses create? But 2050, I think it's a reasonable statement to say everybody that wants to be can be an augmented genius. If a genius is somebody who solves a problem in less time than 99% of other people and learn faster than everyone else, we'll have that capability. 2050. So what do you do with a world of 8 billion geniuses? Well, they are not tied to work to make the plumbing work.
Mm.
And we got to think about that seriously.
I think those geniuses will find their own challenges because the more you know, the more you understand that there is still so much more
Of
that
course.
you could do.
Of course.
So it's not that if we're going to run out of challenges to do.
Right. Right.
I think this is a non-problem in the sense that when people are out of immense pressure of scarcity, they become creative, they become collaborative, they become social, they're going to be different. And I think Francis hit the nail on the head with Web 2.0 is that this is a platform for individual creativity, and that's only going to accelerate as time goes on.
And I think it's going to require a lot of things to counter the evidence-based view that a lot of people will be lazy. I mean, take a look at Greece, for God's sake. You know, what's the retirement age in Greece? How many days off do you get in Greece? You know? And then Germany says, why am I paying for your laziness? Right? And there is and that's got to be addressed. You know, now I am not that motivated by money. When Millennium Project goes through financial difficulties, I stop paying myself. I don't stop working at all. There's absolutely no impact on what I do. But then how do I make sure that, or how do we make sure that you actually do, in fact, engender that? That's why I go back to conscious technology. I think if one does get into that point of view, into that orientation of a future mind, whoa, you don't want to stop doing anything. You want to do everything. The problem would be how do you focus, and not the other way around. But you got to counter this view to say, well, these people on welfare, they have welfare babies and they have welfare grandchildren, and they're lazy. Right? But that's got to be countered. It can't be just said, it's got to be countered.
I have developed a concept of a mobilization system, which is an application of social science methods and information technology to mobilize people to do, and the best example that everybody knows is gamification.
Yes.
By gamification, you can mobilize people to do useful things, but there are lots of other techniques that are even more powerful than gamification. And it's really not that difficult to get people to give them the feeling that they want to do something.
Right. This one has got to be detailed. Somebody's going to, I'm pushing this guy to do this. Detail, like how many people, where, what budget line, what cash flow, and you work out those details. Because I used to know Robert Theobald. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Robert Theobald talked about this in the 50s. Robert Theobald, he was born in Ceylon, grew up in England, and then hung out in Arizona and died, unfortunately. But he was talking about guaranteeing, it's called free men and free markets. Yeah, these guys die without my permission. It's really annoying. Anyway, this is why the avatars is a good idea. Let's get some avatars out there so we can still talk to these guys. But these ideas have been around a long time. These are not new ideas. And what hasn't been done, in my judgment, is a serious connect up the dots, show how it's plausible, so that no matter what somebody says, they can't say, you can't afford it. You gotta show how you can afford it.
But de facto, we have it. De facto, because of the social security system, if you look 20% or 30% of
Yeah, but it's
certain
killing
parts
the
of the
union right now.
population.
You're in financial difficulty. So you don't want, so if you,
Yeah,
In
no,
Belgium
not
it's
really.
very relative. I mean,
Yeah.
there has always been some that, but the system has always been working very well, and people
Yeah.
don't fall out of the system. The homeless people in Brussels, you have to find them. You have to know where they are.
Yeah, and that's because they don't want to. They have
Yeah,
no
there's-
possibilities.
I just want to say that I think the problem with welfare is that, I mean, I think the example you give with Greece and Germany is obviously a valid one, but the problem with welfare is that there is no incentive for someone on welfare to work, because if they work, they lose their welfare.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But this is what I'm saying, this is exactly what you gotta do. That's exactly what you gotta say these things, but like, put them in a logical order.
I know. Oh,
Yeah, but
this is
that's
the
why-
direction of my thought.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's my basic criticism also of the basic income. Basic income alone
Right.
will not solve that problem. That some people will just take the income and do nothing and sit behind the TV and eat junk foods and just be very unhappy, basically.
Paleo food in front of TV. Paleo food in front of TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you got the whole marketing people
So
who are
you
getting
need
so
to
good at marketing.
combine the
they're busy
basic
doing all
income
kinds of
with the
nonsense.
mobilization.
Yeah.
You need to combine it with the mobilization.
Yeah.
Mobilization to educate yourself, to be creative, to go out, to do
Yes,
sports.
So I'm looking forward to a
be active.
tapestry of ideas
Yeah.
woven together that can make a story that makes sense to people.
Yeah.
How does it all fit together?
Well, that's what we are.
That's what I want. That's the whole point of what I want to work on is a total image of the global village, like with these ideas in mind. Like I said, I'm not just saying basic income and then it's done. No, I mean, there needs to be mobilization for education. There needs to be a reinvigoration in society. I think for when you say gamification, I see that as part of a transition from making work playful. And just the whole mentality that work should be play, work should be a creative activity. And I think you're going to get a lot more out of people when they feel like they have some agency in what they do in their life. I think if you ask my generation what their problem is, it's that they take a look at the system in front of them and they say, there are no options that are appealing for me. There's no stability. And there's no options that are appealing. They don't feel like they're in control of their own life at all. And they're right to think so.
Yeah, but also that works two ways, is that I would say previous generations did not have the ambition to have control of that life.
Yeah.
They had a choice, I'm going to be this, or that. But now it's like, you can invent your life. What? The idea of inventing your life, 1945, impossible.
Yeah,
It wouldn't exist.
And work relationship becomes something different.
So I think
Yeah.
the only thing that's missing is being comfortable with like not being scared of the situations that you don't have the stability.
Not being scared of the unknown.
And
Embracing infinite possibility
there is
instead
no
of
stability, and you can just go moment by moment, and
Yeah.
you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wrote about somewhere, the idea that you may not have a career, you have a life.
Exactly.
You do all kinds of stuff, but it's not a career.
No, you're gonna be
You're an
multiple-
opportunist in a sense.
Everyone's gonna be his own employer.
That's right.
That's
That's Well, they also said it like a holding company. Imagine yourself, smiley face in the middle of your future website, 3D space right there. And then what are you? You're also maybe a rep for Brussels. You may be a music teacher, a juggling teacher, take you to a museum. What are all those things that it's you?
Exactly.
And then make a living at it. That's how the Millennium Project got started. Ted and I were tired of the way things were being done. Say, hey, let's invent something different. So we looked for markets instead of a job. No one hired us. This is a pure invention. Every step along the way.
There are a ton of internet entrepreneurs as well that have emerged from a part of Web 2.0 emerging that are exactly that.
Yeah.
It's already happening.
You saw that study done on how many people
No.
were making a living on creating apps?
Right.
I don't have the data on, but it was large. The people who did the research were shocked at how big it was. And it was so big that now they have a website. If you want to learn how to create your own app and create your own business, you can go to the EU
Yeah.
website.
But look at all the crowdsourcing. If you want a design to be made for anything, and you just crowdsource it, and it could be a Portuguese or an Indian or whatever.
Yeah.
That changed enormously.
Yeah.
I think the future of crowdsourcing economics is massive as well.
Yeah.
When we start thinking about empowering the individuals in
Yeah.
economics.
I'm a strong believer in that.
Yeah, crowdsourcing is massively powerful future.
There's an experiment underway right now. You may want to track. You know that the X Prize. Okay, the X Prize is starting one on education. And what they normally the X what the, now let's people don't know this. What they do with the X Prize has happened is they say, let's say we want to change X, and then they trace it back to the present tense and see, businesses will do this part, government can do that part, universities will do that part, this is having this going on. Oh, but this right here, nobody's doing that. So they give a prize for that, to make the chain work. Now, right now they're saying one of the problems in education is it takes too damn long. So what they're giving an X Prize now, and the reason I say this is that every step of the way, this will be the first time they've ever done it, they're going to crowdsource everything, including public, this is how I know about it, is that get the word around the world. Who's going to do it? So they crowdsource that. So every step of the prize, not only the money, but everything else, they crowdsourced everything. It's the first time they've done that. Usually they just crowdsource one or two parts. This time the whole thing. It's going to be the X Prize in education. I forgot what it's called. But it's the idea of giving 15 million or whatever it is to people who can train or educate 80 million children between, I think, the ages of 3 and 5 in the basic reading, writing, and arithmetic competency in like 6 months. First person to do that wins the prize. Boy, that's going to focus a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. It's cool. You can look it up. X Prize in education, and they're crowdsourcing everything: logos, crowdsourcing text, crowdsourcing public. I was part of the Vanguard group for the first getting the word around the world. So, like I'm talking right now, it's part of my responsibility. And if that model works, because the idea of that fast education, because that speeds up all of your stuff.
Yeah.
You know, kids go to universities a little earlier, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, I should stop talking.
We're still sitting here.
Get up and move around.